Hello, everybody. Good evening and welcome to the United Stand. Latest Manchester United news. We're going to be talking about Rangnick's revolt, Rangnick's January transfer dilemma, who should be starting against Wolves, what else we're going to talk about? Yeah, who should be starting against Wolves, who the captain should be, and also the big top four race. If we win our 3 games in hand, only 3 points behind Chelsea, but can we win 3 games in hand after our last 3 games? I'm joined by Jay, Ricky, and Adam. How are you all doing?
Good, mate. Cheers.
Happy New Year to you all. I think it's your first time on the show this year.
Happy New Year.
We will fly straight into it because there is a lot to talk about. I want to talk about this captaincy. I want to talk about how we should line up against Wolves. I want to talk about the top 4 race. There's a lot I want to talk about, but the first thing I'm going to start talking about is the January dilemma that Ralf Rangnick faces. Now, I count 10 players. There was an article this afternoon about the amount of unrest Rangnick has potentially inherited, but also maybe created himself. When you've got Anthony Martial, Edison Cavani, Jesse Lingard, Donny van der Beek, Dean Henderson, Nemanja Matic, Juan Mata, Eric Bailly, and potentially 2 fullbacks, considering 2 of them can't get picked. That's 10 senior players unsettled, and it's only halfway through the season. Does this worry you? I'll start off with you, Jay, because you've not been on a Sunday night show for a while. Does this worry you that we've got so much unrest at Manchester United halfway through the season at a very pivotal time when our rivals for top 4 are actually playing quite well? And why do you think it is?
Well, obviously the squad is extreme bloated. It's top heavy with attacking talent. I think Anthony Martial is as good as out the door if somebody comes in with proper money. Unfortunately, Sevilla didn't obviously have the finances and the club turned him down. But you know there are 10 players that are unsettled, not getting game time and want out. But that's a legacy created by our previous manager, where he found it very, very difficult not to tell a player, listen, thanks for your service, but your time is up. We're moving on. We're going a different way. He just didn't have, I don't know what do you want to call it, backbone or wherewithal or basic strategic planning to move players on. Like Ricky, I know you love Matic, but to give Matic a deal this late in his career, I thought that was bad form. Mata should be gone. Mata's a lovely guy. We all like his blog. He should have been gone. And then someone like Jesse Lingard, who probably last August, the peak of his powers, we could have gone for 30 mil. And there's no question in my mind that Solskjaer told Lingard, no, Jesse, mate, you stay, you're getting game time, which wasn't the case. So I think a lot of these players were put into this false sense of, yes, I'm going to get game time. Yes, I'm going to stay. So unfortunately, it's a mess that's here for Rangnick that he has to deal with. But you know, Mark, and everybody watching, history tells us when it comes to doing deals, be you selling a player or buying a player, our board is notoriously slow and inept at doing a deal. So I cannot see even 5 deals been done in January. And we between now and May, I would envisage there's going to be a lot more leaks coming out in the media that the squad's unhappy, not happy with training methods, or God forbid, Mark, having to drive home at 5 o'clock in the dark. So there is definitely unrest in the squad, but it's the legacy of the previous manager for me.
Yeah, it's interesting, Ricky, because obviously Anthony Martial not in the squad on Burnley. Rangnick has said today that, you know, I understand why he wants to go, but that's why I didn't pick him, because he wants to go. There is a lot. I can't remember a time, especially halfway through a season, and I agree with Jay that a lot of this is a legacy of the issues that were presented in the summer. And look, I thought Matic played well against Burnley. Mata, I think, should have been allowed to go. He's not been used. Lingard should have been allowed to go and was told he could stay. So I think there are problems there, but it is, you know, you could probably, all right, it might not be 10, it could be 7, it could be as much as 12 when you put people like Phil Jones in there, but it's a lot of players to have unhappy. And, you know, Anthony Martial wouldn't even give Rangnick a chance. He was like, first meeting, I want to go. So what are your thoughts on that? And Martial going on loan as well?
Honestly, you know, everybody knows what I think of Anthony Martial. I think he's a quality player. I don't blame him for wanting to go for the lack of game time that he's had. You know, being players who, for me, are vastly inferior to him being selected ahead of him. I'd want to go. But, like you just said, I don't understand whether he's had a conversation with Rangnick and Rangnick's, I don't know what's gone on. I don't know what's been said. But I've got to be honest. When we got a new manager, Solskjaer was treating him terribly, treating Martial terribly. I thought when we got a new manager, it'd be a clean sweep, and I thought he'd start getting a chance. And for him, just don't know what's happened. But obviously, Rangnick's either told him he don't fancy him in the first place, or has he been to training and he doesn't like his methods? I don't know. I can't work it out.
On that, Rick.
Go on.
I know. I just wanted to ask you something because it just prompted something in my head. I personally am a bit. I'm 100% behind Rangnick. I think I watched a fantastic game today between Liverpool and Chelsea with two managers who are basically disciples of Rangnick, and I was like, well, what a man to have in charge. So hopefully he can do some good stuff. But just something you said there about Martial, I'm surprised. Also, Donny van der Beek, I'm surprised. Do you think that he's actually making as many changes as you thought he would do? Because ultimately, I think it might have been the Burnley game. The starting 11 was basically the same starting 11 as Carrick played against Arsenal, apart from a couple of changes he had to make because I think Varane was being rested or whatever, and I think maybe Sancho started in the game. But, still no looking for Donny. Still the centre-backs remained the same. The full-backs were back the same. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I'm amazed Donny as well. I think Martial and Donny are two of the best players in the squad. I love players who look after the ball well, and he mentioned the other night, Rangnick. I like what I'm hearing from him most of the time, but he said a couple of things, by the way, that if I was interviewing a manager for a job and he said these two things to me, I'd think to myself, he doesn't understand the game, this fella. Just two things. It's the same thing, but in two separate games. And he brought it up the other night. He said Van der Beek should have cleared his lines against Young Boys. And after that game against Young Boys, he said we had two chances to clear it. He said Maguire should have cleared it and Van der Beek should have cleared it. I'll come back to that. Then the other night, he brought that up again when he said Bailey should have cleared it. Well, as far as I'm concerned, he's absolutely bang out of order. Professional footballers, good Sunday League players, they don't just boot it clear every time it comes to them in the final third of the field. That ball the other night, Bailey tried to take it under control. Lennon was 6. I've deliberately just watched it, by the way. I've just rewound it and watched it before I've come on. The shades of grass that you see in the cut of the grass. I think they're 6 or 7 meters wide. Lennon's in one and Bailey's in the other. And I stopped it when the ball's at his feet, and it's a dead easy ball to control. It's straight to him. A professional footballer has got to control that ball and pass it. Booting it
I've
away.
seen you do it, Ricky. He's sending me clips all the time of him controlling it in his garden. You did have controlled that, Ricky.
Mark, I promise you, well, maybe not now at 63, but when I was a young footballer, I'd have controlled that, no problem whatsoever. You've played centre-half, Adam. Do you think, have a look at it again, it comes straight to him.
Seen it.
Yeah,
Seen it.
He's got
it's a mistake.
To control it. So what the man, it is a mistake, it's a poor touch.
He called him out for it though, Ricky.
No, but you're missing my point, Mark. What he said afterwards was that he should be clearing the ball. He shouldn't be clearing the ball. He should be controlling it and passing it. For him to say that he should clear that ball, you might as well say to all your defenders, every time the ball comes to you in the final third of the field, just boot it away. That's not how professional football's played. You control the ball if you've got time and space, and he did have time and space. You control the ball and you pass it. And then the two, he said against the Young Boys, like I say, it's the same theme, but a different incident. He said Maguire could have cleared it. He said Van der Beek could have cleared it. If you watch a Premier League football game, you'll see centre-backs passing it out of the box into the midfield players 30 times in a match. So what is he saying? Don't ever pass the ball just outside your own penalty area. Always boot it clear. But the way he's talking, it's as if he thinks he's got a crystal ball. He's got the benefit of hindsight. People might think I'm mad, but I promise you I'm not. It's easy looking back on a game and say, of course it would have been better if Bailey would have booted it away, because then they wouldn't have scored. It would have been better if Maguire or Van der Beek would have booted it away, because then they wouldn't have scored. But you don't know that. You don't know that in advance. They don't know that that's going to be the particular incident where the pass goes wrong or where your control lets you down. You don't know in advance. So it's easy to say after the game, just boot it clear. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
It's madness. It's absolute madness.
But something just came into my head there, and we'll bring Adam in on this because I want to talk about Maguire, and by all means get involved in the chat. But the reality is, just prompted something here. I don't know whether anyone else is noticing this. I mention it every watch along. I call it the rugby kickoff. It used to happen under Ollie, and we're doing it under Rangnick. We play it to Lindelof or Maguire, and they it's like we're playing rugby. They boot it out.
Well, Liverpool did that today, Mark. Liverpool did that today, and Mane should have got sent off after 7 seconds.
Yeah, I saw it. But
we're not the only club that do it.
But we're seeing. But this is what I mean. This is what I worry about. I'm seeing things that were happening under the previous manager, and we're still doing it now. And they're totally different mindsets as coaches. But going back to what Ricky was saying there, Adam, I mean, Rangnick did actually call out Eric Bailly. I agree with Ricky. You know, maybe could have took a touch instead of booting it. But it's the second game in a row where I heard him mention Varane make a mistake against Newcastle. I'm like, yeah, Bailly made a mistake. Varane made a mistake. Very close to the halfway line. There was somebody else who made a massive mistake, and his name's Harry Maguire. Like, I know Eric Bailly should clear it, but he was almost sat on.
He should control it, Mark. He shouldn't clear it.
He should control it. He should control it. But as soon as Aaron Lennon's got it, Harry Maguire's sprinting behind the goal to sit on someone's lap. He's going that deep.
Let's bring that up again.
Well, I want to talk about the captaincy. Ricky, I was going to ask you about the captaincy, Adam, because a lot of people.
I'll get into that as well, but it's like Ricky said there. He's talking about the lines, the tram lines of look how far away this happened. So let's take the second phase of defending into account as well. Bailly made a mistake. It can happen. They've all made mistakes this season, our defence. And going quickly back to that Hail Mary that we keep doing after every kickoff, it's happened quite a lot. But there's a few times we've actually tried passing the ball out and gone backwards with it. And it's gone to Mr. Maguire, El Capitano, and he's just dilly-dallied on the ball. And it's ended up going off his shin and going out of play. And straight away, it picks the opposition fans up. This is what happened against Newcastle. I think I made this point. Straight away, we made a mistake. The fans got up and they played on it. So every time Maguire was on the ball, the fans were all over him. But that Bailly incident there, I've got no problem in Rangnick picking out mistakes because mistakes are what cost you games. They're the ones that really are costing us because we're making a lot of them. Bailly's not played for a long time. Still no excuse for me to make a mistake like that. Ricky called me out and said centre half. I'd have controlled that and I just leisurely passed Lennon there. No issue at all. It's easy this game when you look at it from the stands, but there's a lot of pressure on these players. And I'm not saying Rangnick saying clear the ball every single time. It's not what you should do as a centre-back, you're right. But there's times when you do just have to clear your lines and play percentage football. There is times when you have to do that. It's as simple as that. And like Liverpool and City do, you pick up the seconds and you start again. You recycle the ball back. Maguire should have dealt with Aaron Lennon as well. After that, that's the problem I've got, Mark, with it. Mistakes happen. It's down to you to be able to read the situation as well. And as a defender, you should be in a position where you're anticipating a mistake from your centre-back partner as well. That has to be part of the game. Maguire doesn't do this. He really doesn't. If you get past Maguire once, that's it. You're done. He's not quick enough to get back at you, and that was proven. He was too scared to put a foot in on Lennon, and Lennon just had all the time in the world because Maguire was giving him 2 yards for his pace, so he didn't look like an idiot.
He should have just shown him wide. That's the thing. His body shape was all wrong. He should have showed him down the right.
Mate, even if he tried to send him wide, he'd still got round him. He's that slow. He's that slow when he had that much space. The only reason Maguire's in the team at the moment for me is because he got lucky with Lindelof being unfortunate, a victim of COVID. Do you think he would have dropped Maguire? I think we're going to see Maguire drop soon. I do believe that Rangnick has the balls to do it. I could have egg on my face, I really could, but Harry Maguire doesn't belong in that team at the moment. I've said it on many shows, I'm an advocate of form. And if you come in and you take your chance, you stay in the team. Doesn't matter who you are. Look at what Tuchel did with Lukaku today. 95 million, couldn't give a toss. Out of the team, mate. And Chelsea are playing okay without him. You know what I mean? You've got to do this. Look at what Arteta did with Aubameyang, club captain. Not having that. Just because he's a nice guy off the pitch doesn't mean you get to give him that lease of life on the pitch. I mean, he has been poor, and at the moment, he is our worst defender. he's the only defender at the moment I'm sort of worrying about, because I think the fullbacks are coming into good form. We've got pretty decent cover there now. I think Lindelof's having a steady season. Varane will in time come back to his form. He's just obviously coming back. Unfortunately, Bailly's off to the African Cup of Nations. Past that, mate, that captaincy decision is going to be a big one. My man Jay down there will say, has he got the balls to make the calls? And that is one of the biggest calls of all, because I do believe that the players are never going to respect someone who's playing that bad on a pitch. I don't care who you are. Like, Ricky will back me up on this and say, look, if my captain is playing that bad and he's telling me to do something about my game, you're not going to be listening to him, mate. You're not. He's just playing awful. And I think he puts the rest of the defence on edge. He puts, the guy sat behind me at Old Trafford he said, literally, every time Maguire touches the ball, my heart skips 6 beats. I'm just scared shitless every time he got the ball, and he puts pressure on the defence, mate. A decision has to be made. I think he's lucky because there's no one else to come in for him at the moment. That's where I'm at with Maguire.
Yeah, Jay, what's your thoughts on that? Adam basically saying if you drop him, you don't need to worry about the captaincy anyway. I don't think, for whatever reason, I don't think he will get dropped. I think he's almost, El Capitano, like Adam says. I think he's numero uno for some reason within that team because he's captain. Numero uno. I don't see him being dropped, although I agree. Last 2 games, he's cost us 2 goals for me.
Mark, we've all given our 2 pence worth on Harry Maguire on numerous shows last year and this year. For me, a captain of any sport has got to be above reproach and above criticism. Captain should be putting in 7 out of 10 performances week in, week out. Captain literally is the rock of your team. And Maguire simply isn't. So if Maguire is a standard that the other players aspire to as captain, it's very obvious to me how and why this club has slipped over the last couple of years. Like Alex Ferguson always said that Roy Keane literally was his enforcer on the pitch. Well, no better man to manifest our previous manager on the pitch, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Not the most charismatic, not the most communicative, very poor in press conferences, couldn't really hold the crowd than Harry Maguire. I flagged Harry Maguire, lads, 18 months ago. I said, watch Harry Maguire's interviews post-match when he has actually got the balls to do post-match interviews. Because normally, guys, it's Bruno or David De Gea, because Maguire performs very, very badly post-match because he can't communicate. In his post-match interviews, his body language, gentlemen, is all over the place. Your body language is 80% communication. Maguire is looking away from the interviewer, he's looking down with his feet, he's not engaging. Now picture Maguire doing your pre-match, trying to riot the troop and rouse the troops. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. And we all remember the clip from the Euros where Maguire was telling Rashford to track back or cover a man. I can't remember the context. And literally, Rashford is telling Maguire in no certain terms to what to do with himself. So clearly, I don't think there's much respect for Maguire in the squad, because it's a case of, mate, what have you won? Sure, medals. That's easy. He's won absolutely nothing. David De Gea was captain before Maguire, and David De Gea was unceremoniously stripped of his captaincy because he spoke out in a post-match interview. And that's why Maguire is captain. And let's not lose sight of that, gentlemen. I have a theory that as long as Maguire is captain, he won't be dropped. And as you point out, Adam, does Ralph have the balls to do so? I think if he had the balls to do so, he'd have done it by now. That should be his first move. First day in training, you make Ronaldo and previously I would have thought Bruno would be a good captain. Bruno's antics on the pitch the last 3 months have been laughable. I haven't liked. Okay, park his performances for a minute, but Bruno's on the pitch antics for me says he shouldn't be captain. The way captain for me is David De Gea or Ronaldo. So if Ralph's going to do it, gentlemen, I think he'd have done it by now.
Ricky, what was your thoughts on this? Not only the captaincy, does it bother you? I agree with the lads, and I think back to Robson, Keane, Bruce, Vidic, even Gary Neville and Giggs when they did it. My belief with the captain is that you have to be one of the best players on the pitch to lead. And I think Harry Maguire is consistently, unfortunately, one of the worst. Would you drop him? And if so, who for? Because I know you're not a big fan of Bailey. And also, do you think the captaincy is a burden on him that really shouldn't be there?
Don't know the answer to that. If it's whether it's a burden on him or not, I don't know. Some people thrive on things like that, don't they? Being the skipper.
No, what I mean is, like, do you think it could be a burden on his performance, whereby if you take that off him, his game might improve?
It's possible. It's possible, but it's a tricky one as to who the skipper should be. Really, I'm not mad keen on strikers being the captain. I like somebody at the back or in midfield organising things and pulling the forwards into position and things like that. So not mad keen on it being a striker. Even a keeper. I mean, Jace picks a striker and a keeper, and I prefer a defender or a midfield player. So it really is tricky when you say that. It can't be Fred. Scott McTominay, could it be? Matic, if he's playing, but he doesn't play regularly enough. I think Matic should be a great captain, but he doesn't play regularly enough. It's a real tricky one if you take it off him. Who do you actually give it to? Unless, I agree with Jay in as much as these players are respected enough to do the job. I just prefer somebody in charge of the team on the park who's behind the ball all the time, organising things. Obviously, that counts for your keeper, but maybe that's a bit too far removed. When you've got the opposition pressed back and your centre halves shouting different things to different players, it's a bit difficult for your keeper to be heard, isn't it? So I prefer
Ricky, mate. You're watching football a lot longer than I. Cast your mind back to Dina's off World Cup 1982 in Spain.
It happens.
He captain Italy to win a World Cup. He's a goalkeeper. So
it happens. I'm not saying
Dave Besson, 88. Wimbledon.
Well, I'm not saying it doesn't
exactly.
happen.
1-0. Dennis Wise, Vinnie Jones.
I prefer a defender or a midfield player to be skipper. That's all I'm saying.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? The captain position on the pitch is a tough one.
I'm going to have a word with him on Tuesday. He's on Tuesday morning. Paul Ince says McTominay for captain. Well, don't worry. I'll have a word about that with him on Tuesday.
God.
But
no.
It's like they say, one swallow doesn't make a summer, does it? And McTominay was good against Burnley, but Leeds have just gone and beat Burnley the same we beat them. So, where do you put that? It's very hard to know how good we are at the moment. We were good against Burnley, and McTominay was man of the match, but Leeds have just beaten 3-1 and they're fourth bottom. So it's hard to tell.
It's easy to say that, but this has been going on a long time, how poorly we've been playing. It's only, don't know, how long is it now? 8 months perhaps since we drew with Fulham at Old Trafford when they were already relegated. We just played terribly v Norwich and managed to scrape a 1-0 win. Norwich are not as good as Burnley. We were much better against Burnley than we were. I know you're sort of scraping the barrel in a way, but you've got to start somewhere. You've got to start somewhere. And that performance the other night was a lot better than most performances in the I can't remember every game off the top of my head, but I bet if you look at the last 12 months, I bet it's one of the best 8 or 9 performances.
Let's be honest, it was better than Newcastle.
It's teams during that period as well. So you've got to start somewhere.
Well, I'll go to Adam on this and we can sort of interact if we've got anything different to what he's got to say, because on to that, I was watching the Chelsea-Liverpool game earlier, and I think Wolves have got the second least goals conceded in the league. They don't score many, but they're very well organised. They do play good football. They are in 8th place. And if we play anything like we did against Burnley on Thursday, with that formation as well, a 4-2-4, we'll get stuffed. So he's got to set the team up differently tomorrow. He can't play 4-2-4 against the team that plays basically a 3-4-3 or a 5-3-2 or whatever.
Fully agree. Fully expect Fred and
I'll just cut in with I'll be dead quick. I've had a look at Wolves' recent results. In the last 7 league games, they've conceded 2 goals.
Yeah.
And in those 2 goals, one was a penalty against City of all people. It was never a penalty in a million years.
Yeah, I remember it.
The other goal that they conceded was against Liverpool, and that was in the 95th minute. They're so unlucky to have conceded any goals in the last 7 games.
This is what I've said. The team won't be the same.
I was going to ask you anyway, Adam. Go away with it. Yeah. What changes would you make, if any?
Yeah.
What would you do?
It's not so much what I would do. I think it's what we probably need to do, because let's go back to early on in the season, second away game of the season. I remember it well. I was there, and nothing changes against Wolves. This is notoriously the worst game in Premier League football. Manchester United against Wolves is an awful game. No matter when we play them, whenever we play them, they have got our number. We cannot handle this team. Varane and David De Gea were man of the match in that game. Tells you everything you need to know. They just cannot finish their dinner. They play great football. They're very well organised. They're rock solid at the back. Everyone knows the role. They cannot hit a cow's ass with a banjo. That is their only problem. They don't score enough goals, but my God, they don't concede. I think I made a point. I was talking and I said, look, in all the time Wolves have been back in the Premier League, I've been to every single game, and we've scored more than one goal in a game once against them. And that was when we didn't have our first team playing against them last game of last season, when there was nothing riding on it. When it's important, FA Cup, Premier League, we struggle against Wolves because they are so well organised. And nothing much has changed since Bruno Sarr's come in from Espirito Santo with them. They've just carried on, except they don't score as many goals. That's about it. I fully expect McFred to be back in the midfield. I actually think he's going to play Luke Shaw against Traore, because I think it will be Traore down that side. I'm pretty certain that's where he predominantly goes down. I think Shaw will have his work cut out for him if he does go down the right. But then he played centrally against us last time, and he tore Fred and Pogba completely apart in that midfield. Physicality is a big thing of Ralph's, which is why I expect McTominay to still be in the team, because he's probably the one midfielder who gives us that combativeness, and he gets up and down the pitch probably better than Fred and Matic does with that strength. I expect that to be there. The big decisions are going to come in the front line, because we're going to need to take chances. We're not going to create many chances. I can guarantee you that. Does that mean that Cavani plays an hour and then comes off when he's tired? Because he usually doesn't play 2 games this close together. Ronaldo will play. And I think it's all going to be down to delivery into the box, because I think we're going to have to play with width if we're going to open Wolves up. We're not going to get through the middle of them. We haven't got the speed. So it's going to have to be wide play. It's going to be interesting how we adapt to it, because he went 4-4-2, 4-2-4 in and out of possession against Burnley. And I don't expect us to be pushing that many men forward against Wolves. But we are going to have to control the ball better. That's where it sort of breaks down a little bit, because we don't control it with McFred. The transition isn't as good. You can see McTominay played better with Matic, because Matic did that role and let McTominay do more of the running. But you can't rely on Fred. You can't rely on McTominay covering Fred, or vice versa for me in transition. That's the problem. But he sort of puts them there defensively, which is why I think it is going to be a bit of a damp squib. And you're scraping a 1-0 out of this at best, even though I've gone 2-0. I don't know why I've gone 2-0. Just fancy maybe a breakaway goal late on. I don't expect many chances for either team, and it's going to be a tough watch. But you have to admire the way Wolves are set out. And that's why they're still in the Premier League, because they're solid, and every single man who comes into that team, whether it's a new signing or not, or a younger player, knows exactly what he's doing, and he slots straight in. They are a very good outfit, and we will need to pay them all the respect that they deserve, because like Ricky said, 12 goals conceded is phenomenal for the team that they are in this Premier League, with the forward lines that are in this league at the moment. Like you said, Liverpool and City struggle to score against them. I can't believe we've actually beat them the last 3 times we've played them. But you just don't know on the night, but I don't expect it to be a great one, mate. I really don't.
Yeah, we'll go to you, Jay. I mean, Rashford was dropped on Thursday and Bruno was suspended. I personally think they'll both come into the team. I don't think Cavani will start. I think he'll bring Rashford back in, and I think it'll be either Greenwood or Sancho who gets benched for Bruno, and it'll be a narrower 4-2-2, because I think if you play with the wider 4-2-2, which he did on against Burnley, will get overrun in the midfield. Do you think that's right to bring Bruno back in and maybe a Rashford as well?
I don't not want to see Rashford back in. He's done nothing this season to warrant a recall. This has been his worst run of games probably since his debut. If Rashford comes back in, it's purely on reputation. And maybe the question I would have, guys, is how much control does Raf have over team affairs? If Rashford comes back in again, I would doubt it very, very much. I don't personally either want to see Bruno come back in. I think Bruno could be 68 minutes, spring him off the bench. Bruno come on with a point to prove. It'll be McFred at midfield. I've got no doubt whatsoever, which means the midfield will be overrun. And then you're looking then for Sancho and Mason if they're picked. And I would pick both of them because you do need width. I agree with Adam to tuck into midfield and provide some extra numbers. But then it goes down to would Mason have a tactical nous to actually know when he's got to tuck into midfield when we're lacking numbers. I know, Ricky, you love players that work hard and track back, and I do like Mason Greenwood. But when it comes to tracking back and showing football intelligence, he's a young kid. I know he's still learning his trade, but he does seem to hug the wing an awful lot and doesn't tuck into midfield if and when needed. So I'd be sceptical of Wolves. To Adam's points there, as you were talking,
just on
Adam,
that, actually, Jay. Sorry,
yeah.
I just cut you in on that. Actually, you look back on the actual corresponding fixture early on in the season. Bruno and both Greenwood did a lot of very good defensive work in that game. It's just the consistency of it. I think if you set them out with a specific role, you may get that out of them, but it's the consistency over a season, I think, with them more than anything. But they did do a lot of good defensive work, the pair of them in that game, actually. But this is at Old Trafford. I feel like you're about to touch on there, Jay. It's like, will the pressure of us being the ones that have to go forward tell in the end?
I think Bruno's got to play. I think he's out of form. Admittedly out of form, but I think Wolves is a very difficult game, and I think if we don't win tomorrow night, the pressure is huge. And we're going to talk about top four in a minute. I think Bruno has to play.
I think we've
got gentlemen on that.
I think we've got more chance of winning if he doesn't play, though. You're saying he's got to play because we need to win. I think we've got more chance of winning if he doesn't play. We played better the other night. The ball better. I
would definitely be of the opinion you spring Bruno off the bench when Cavani ultimately tires, because Cavani cannot play 2 games a week. I've heard of Cavani. Ralph admitted very obviously in his press conference he wants Cavani to stay. Cavani's going nowhere. So if Cavani can't play 2 games a week, he will start him. Hope he gets some a goal from him early or whatever. But Cavani's the kind of player that would get hooked after 60 minutes. So I think Bruno's the ideal player to bring on after the hour for Cavani. And why could you not play Bruno either behind or beside Rooney up? Sorry, I almost said Rooney. Jeez, we had Rooney now beside Ronaldo up top. Adam, on your point there, as you were talking, I went on to the Premier League app, and the fixture back in August. It wasn't until the 80th minute that we scored with Greenwood, as you alluded to. But we've played Wolves 6 times since 2018.
They should have beat us in August. They should have beat us.
They were the better side because they ran in midfield. Their midfield was far superior than ours. We were very lucky. So 6 games in the Premier League since 2018, and it's each game, barring a 0-0 draw in 2020, has been won by the odd goal. So tomorrow, do not expect champagne football. Expect a 1-0, hopefully to us, or 0-0. That's what we're in store for. So I know, Adam, tomorrow evening you're going to be at the ground, and you're people on fan cams bemoaning the lack of goals, lack of creativity. But lads, we're playing Wolves. Wolves don't concede.
You know, on that, mate, I brought up Wolves in a few of the fan vlogs after the Burnley game, and I think a lot of fans have actually realised how big this Wolves game is. Like Mark said then, Ricky said on a previous show as well, this is our toughest game in a while going forward in terms of how the team sets up against us. No one's really, from what I spoke to, expecting this to be a bonanza. This is like, sit down, get comfy in your seat. This is it's going to be a tough one. It's going to be a hard game. I think a lot of fans are talking exactly the same way, to be honest.
It's interesting. I think the next couple of games, Ricky, Villa and Wolves, I think they're massively difficult games because they're the sort of teams that are sort of knocking on the top 6. They won't be there, but they're knocking on that, and I think they'll play a distinct way. Is there anything you do tomorrow, just before we start talking about the top 4? Is there anything you do with that team tomorrow?
Well, there is something I'd do, but he's never going to do it. I'd keep Virgil in the same team. I know this isn't going to happen, but this is what I'd do. I'd put Martial on the left wing, and I'd put Sancho on the right wing. I'd drop Greenwood, and that'd be the only change I'd make. But going back to what he'll do, what I'm double interested.
Why would you drop Greenwood? Because Greenwood played quite well. I watched it. Greenwood played quite well on Thursday.
He played all right. I still prefer Sancho on the right. He did play okay, but
who would you play with Sancho then? Get Bruno back in and drop Greenwood.
No, I'd put Sancho on the right, and I'd put Martial on the left. That'd be me. That'd be my only change. But obviously, he's not going to do that. Martial's never going to play again, I don't think. I'd still do it. If I was in charge tomorrow, I'd do it, and I'd pick him every time until he's gone, and then see if he still wants to go. But what I wanted to mention was when he played his first game against Palace. When questioned about the lineup, he said, "Well, I watched the Arsenal game, and nobody deserved to be left out." And then when we played against Norwich, he said, "Well, after the Palace game, nobody deserves to be left out." And now we've just had without a doubt, I don't think anybody can argue, we've just had our best performance yet under Rangnick. So does anybody deserve to be left out? If he goes by what he said before, do you know what I'm saying?
That's a good point.
I agree on that, but I just think it's the timescale of games is the only reason we'll get changes, I think.
Yeah.
I also think, I mean, I might be in the minority here, but I described the Burnley game as patchy. I don't think we were as good in that Burnley game as some people think. I think Burnley were a little bit unlucky to be 3-1 down at half time. I thought we deserved to be winning, but I don't think they were far off us. And I also think we played very much with two holding midfielders and a front four, and it was very wide. And I think if you play that against Wolves, who are very narrow, they're going to absolutely destroy whatever midfield that is. So I think he's got to pull somebody in to support that midfield. Now, that's either, is Cavani going to track back? Not really that deep. Or you've got to have Sancho and Greenwood centrally, in which case you may as well have a Donny or a Bruno and drop one of them two.
That's it.
Mark, I said in the fan forum that the first half we were 7 out of 10. Second half we were 4. We were 4 out of 10. For me, the second half was like a training game. We invited Burnley to come back at us. We were going literally at a snail's pace because the players, for me, simply are not fit. We had 30 minutes of press against Crystal Palace, and we haven't seen it since. And as you already pointed out, Leeds beat Burnley. So that 3-1 result, it's 3 points, 3 goals, fantastic. But that performance, that was an average performance at best. It's 3 points, you take it. Second half, I thought we were very poor, personally.
There is a bit of breaking news. I've seen it in the chat. Harry Maguire is not with the squad tonight at the Lowry Hotel. What I would say to that is, over the last 5 years, I've seen plenty of players not at the Lowry who then start the next game. So I'm not... And based on who is in the squad, it would be Phil Jones and Varane, because Lindelof's not there either, and neither's Eric Bailly. So I think Harry Maguire needs to get himself back fit. I would drop Harry, but not for Phil Jones. So
this is what I said. This is what I said, mate. The only reason he's in the team is because there's no one else to come in. I mean, Ralph's already played Matic at centre back. I think he played Matic at centre back ahead of Phil Jones as well, to be honest.
God, Wolves might not be able to score many goals, but I tell you what, if Phil Jones plays, they'll have a bag full. I'm not having that. We're not doing that. But Phil Jones is polishing his pink boots as we speak. But we'll start with you on this one, Ricky, because I want to talk about the top 4. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. As I said at the start of the show, if United win their 3 games in hand, which is a massive ask considering how we've been playing recently, but if we did, we'd be 3 points off Chelsea. More realistically, we're not in 4th at the moment, and Spurs, new manager, massively improved. Arsenal are finding their feet. West Ham are defying the critics again, and they're still up there. If this is a race for 4th and it's 4 teams going for it, and considering Spurs and Arsenal are not in Europe, what are you feeling about United going into this second half of the season? And something that we thought was pretty much nailed on at the start of the season. We knew who the top 4 would be, but just didn't know the order. Are you worried about top 4?
Yeah, big time, yeah. He's got to get his act together, Rangnick, in a big way. Like I say, I just listened to both you and Jay just say that, it wasn't that great the other night. It wasn't that great. But I'll ask you both the question. Was it not miles better when we played at Norwich? Was it not miles better when we played at Newcastle? So, it's stepping stones. It might not have been great, but at least it was better. Yeah. And we need to be better again. We need to be better again. So he's got to get his act together. This game tomorrow is a real test. When you talk about 3 games in hand, this is the first one tomorrow. And it could hardly be tougher, really. don't count games in hand against the likes of Chelsea, City, and Liverpool. It could hardly be any tougher than Wolves. So this is good. This is a massive 3 points tomorrow. If we win this game tomorrow, I'll be encouraged. But if we don't, I would, it's just as straightforward as that. If we don't win tomorrow, I don't fancy us for top 4.
I don't disagree. I think the evolution of Spurs and Arsenal so quickly, and the fact that they are rivals, they're almost not really fighting with us. They're fighting with each other, and there's only one spot up for grabs. Just on that, Ricky, before we move on as well, January transfer window's open now. Obviously, we've spoken about Martial. Do you think that the club, to enhance their chance of top 4, are you confident that this squad is good enough, or do you actually think we should be getting Rangnick a player in? And if so, where would you be looking?
We definitely need a midfield player. We've been saying it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years, haven't we? We need a midfield player. For me, at that level, I mean, I don't think Fred's good enough anyway overall. He has some good games. The thing with Fred, he has his best games in the tougher games where his job is running round, getting stuck in. When we beat Burnley 3-1 the other night, we're far more likely to beat, like Fred's played against Villa at Old Trafford, against Everton at Old Trafford. He's probably playing in a Fulham game when we drew 1-1. I always go back to that. They were already relegated. If in games where you want to take control of the game, surely Matic is a better shout. Fred's done well when he's played against, not this season, but in the past, he's done well when he's played against City. He's done well when he's played against Liverpool. But that's a different type of game. It's all about running around the park, getting stuck in, tracking people. But when it comes to actually trying to take control of a game and passing the ball around the field and keeping possession, Matic is 10 times the player Fred is. You know what I mean? Now, this Wolves game tomorrow, that sort of falls in between the two stools. They're miles better than all the weak teams, but they're not quite City or Liverpool, are they? It's a bit of a toss-up, really, for tomorrow. I'd go with Matic every day of the week, but what the manager will do, I don't know. But we're desperate for the 3 points tomorrow to stay in the hunt, I think.
I think that's a good point Adam Ricky makes. I actually thought Matic played well against Burnley, not in the sense that he ran the game, but he just sat there and did the one job that nobody else can do. He sat there and McTominay's on the edge of the box, and I was finding myself going, oh, so that's why McTominay gets picked, because obviously in training, he's probably hitting these shots all the time. And I think that's the first 3 shots he's had all season. And I'm like, well, he never gets there because he's never got license to get there. And the reason he's there in that game is because Matic is doing the holding job, and he's the only one who can do the holding job. So for me, I think if we want top 4, I've said it before, we need to go and buy a midfielder. But then there's strong links that we're going for this Alvarez guy. Yeah,
I mean, I've scared everyone. I think I scare Beth every time I talk about this January transfer window because I don't see anything happening. I really don't. I'm looking around and I'm going, it has to be a man that comes straight into this squad right now. And is that quality out there? I mean, I don't think it is. People will say, like, who we're playing against tomorrow night in a Ruben Neves, Premier League proven sort of player, someone of that ilk. I do believe we need 2 midfielders, but the bigger one probably would come in the summer. Right now, you're looking at it, and the names that are being mentioned from different leagues to come into the Premier League in January, I know Bruno hit his strap straight away when he came in, but you have to be a certain quality of player to come in and do that. And has Rangnick got the time? Ricky's going on that he has to find his feet and get his act in order quickly. Has he got time to sort of integrate another midfielder into a system that the rest of the team still aren't used to as well? It's a really tough decision to make. And the way he's talking in his press conferences, I think he's trying to keep players rather than bring players in. I think that's the tact on it. I do believe with COVID, I mentioned this on the show the other day, that any one particular player could drop any time. I think that's why he's kept Henderson. I think that's why a lot of the players just on the edge and the fringes of the squad are also not being allowed to leave. So I don't think we're going to bring anyone in, mate. I really don't. If it is a forward, I think it's pointless, to be honest, because he's not going to come straight into the team. I said the other day, there's 6 players there that he's probably going to be behind. So what's the point? You've got Ahmad, Elanga, and then Palestra, who are behind that front 6. So what's the point in bringing in another potential forward? It's not going to work. Do you know what I mean? Elanga's just signed a 5-year deal. I'd rather see him because he's actually had a couple of games and he's trained with the team all the way through the season. So, no, I don't see anything happening in January. In terms of top four, yeah, it's. I spoke to Ricky privately and I just looked at it and I went, oh, I fear every single team that we're playing. That's the problem. I'm looking at the games in hand. Them games in hand are Brighton and Brentford, and I've watched both of them the last 2 days, and they scared the shit out of me. I'm not going to lie. I look at the way we play, and Ricky has it right in a way where he says he needs to find this system and make it work quickly. We need some form of stability. But that Brighton and Brentford game, there's no pushover in the Premier League. We know that. But they are really tough games. And if you're not at it, you're going to get torn apart by them. But I do look at it and I go,
we've just struggled against the three biggest pushovers, haven't we? So, you know.
It's that. And then do you like that? And then Ricky all of a sudden, like Ricky said then, it's Fred plays well in the bigger games. We may end up as a team playing better under Rangnick in the bigger games. He's just not had any of them yet. But like I said, if we win that game tomorrow night, that's 13 points from 15 for Rangnick in his games in the Premier League. Yeah. It is a little bit of stability. If we can keep a clean sheet tomorrow, that's only 2 goals conceded in his 5 games as well. So there is progression there. I just believe that. I think it's more like he said in his first interview, and I'll always go back to the first interview that he said the biggest problem is the defence. I do believe he's prioritising steadying the ship at that part of the pitch before the rest. I just don't think we've got the forward line in tune with how the system needs to be played yet. I think it will come in time, but I'm looking at the teams and how settled they are. And like you said, top 4 battle against teams that are already in a rhythm and already know what to do, and is very, very tough. And it's if and how quickly we find this system with this current crop of players. It's going to be I cannot call it. I honestly can't. I look at everyone dropping points, and that's my only hope, that there's so many good teams that they're all going to take points off each other, and we always stay in the fight just about, and then we could maybe spring a few games, a bit of a run together towards the end, and that's what sort of gives me hope of.
It's gone.
Lost him.
Is that Mark gone?
No, it was you.
Oh, is it me? So I don't know where it was, but yeah.
No, it's fine. I'll go to you, Joe, on this, because to be honest, I was just been listening to Adam and Ricky there, and I'm going to be honest, like I always am. I actually sat here right now, do not think we're getting top 4, and therefore I think Ronaldo is gone in the summer. And the reason I think we're not getting top 4 is because I think the results are going bad for us. I think there's too many teams that are better than us. And I think, Spurs yesterday with that late winner. Conte ain't Nuno and he ain't bloody Pochettino. It's Conte. He ain't there to mess about. Arteta's Arsenal, they're so close to being a good team. Like, they shouldn't have lost to City yesterday. And I just think with United, Rangnick's got no time, and I tell you now, if they don't bring a midfielder in January, I'm going to say definitely we're not getting top 4. They've got to get him a midfielder in, because I want to talk about the midfield a bit anyway, but I watched Chelsea-Liverpool today. You've got Kante and Kovacic against Fabinho and Henderson, and I was like, they would annihilate us. Rangnick or not, they would annihilate us with those midfields, because we haven't got a midfield that can compete with that, and every team has a chance against our midfield. So I actually think we're not going to get top 4, because I think normally you're up against Leicester for 4th, and they're going to bottle it in April. But I just think Spurs and Arsenal, no European football. I mean, it's going to be very, very difficult.
Yeah, we're in a very tough spot. But I think, Mark, the bigger picture here is Alex Ferguson turned 80 last week. And for him, finishing second was failure. And here we are now discussing our rivals are bloody Spurs and Arsenal for top 4. Yeah. How standards have dropped to the floor, lads, that we're discussing Spurs as a bloody rival. Roy Keane's team talk before we played Spurs was, lads, it's bloody Spurs. That was his team talk. And now they're a rival for top 4. Personally, gentlemen, I think we missed the boat in October, the first international window. Conte was low-hanging fruit then. We should just done the deal. But obviously, Ed Woodward and the Muppet Show that runs the club, they'd never have someone like Conte in charge, because he'd literally come in, kick ass, take names, drop Harry Maguire, and then be screaming for transfer funds. If we don't get a player like Basuma is my pick, by the way, for CDM, Prem Proven can come in, do a job from the start. If we don't get a player like him in January, top 4 is going to be very, very tenuous. And historically, we've been battling with Leicester for top 4. And yes, Leicester, 2 seasons in a row, have bottled top 4. In the long term, regarding CDM, I know it won't happen, but in an ideal world, you keep Fred and McTominay as squad players, because that's all they are. My ideal CDM partnership would be a Frank Kessie and Casemiro. Now, I know it'll never happen. It'll never happen, but they would be my 2, because that is a title-winning midfield. But top 4 right now, for me, gentlemen, it's very tenuous. When Rangnick came in, we all looked at the fixtures and we said, I think we're all in agreement, the first real hard game we have isn't until March when we play City. However, performances thus far have completely changed that theory. And we've got Brighton and Brentford upcoming, Wolves tomorrow, which is going to be a dogfight. The top 4 already in January, just New Year, is already in the balance. And that shows where we are as a club. Standards on the floor, guys.
Atletico Madrid will definitely be very difficult. I mean, what I want to talk about here is, Ricky, is Paul Pogba. He's the only, if we don't buy players like Adam says, and we've got what we've got, Paul Pogba will be back in a couple of weeks. What do you do with Pogba, and is he potentially a player that can help us out, Ricky?
Well, the previous manager didn't really pick him very often at all in what's supposed to be his best position, and most people will have you believe that he's world class in that position. And from what we've seen so far, I mean, somebody told, I didn't see this interview, I don't know if any of you saw it, but somebody who I know very well, who's not a liar, said to me that he saw an interview with Rangnick where he says he does speak to Solskjaer to ask him about the players. So I don't know if any of you saw that interview, but that's what I've been told. So if he's going to speak to Solskjaer about Pogba, he'll probably be on the bench, won't he? Do you know what I mean? So,
well, he's got Darren Fletcher next to him as well, which I just don't understand. So we can have a word with him as well.
No, look, I don't see it. I don't think Pogba pulls up any trees when he plays centre midfield for us. He came in on the left wing a few times just to try and shoehorn him into the side. Then when we got to the Europa League final, I wasn't one of these people at all. But most people thought we were going to win that Europa League final. We had Pogba in midfield. We left Fred out, by the way, to play Pogba there, just in order to fit in Greenwood and Rashford and Bruno, and who was up top at that time, Cavani. And I still didn't fancy us, and we still didn't win. So it didn't go very well, that did it? And that's against Villarreal, who most people will have you believe would be in the bottom half of the Premier League, you know what I mean? So, you know, I'm not convinced Pogba's going to make any difference for us if he plays in midfield. He's a little bit too attack-minded. Like, if you look at our midfield too the other night, I know, when I say I know, I don't really know this until it's tried and tested. Everybody says Matic can't play every week. Maybe he can't. If Matic can't play every week, if you put Pogba there, from that game the other night, would Pogba still stay in that position and allow McTominay that freedom, or would he want to try and get further forward? Is he more, you know, let's assume all those players are all fit to play every game. Is he more of a competitor for Matic if he's fit to play every week, or is he more a competitor for McTominay if he's fit to play every week? I'd suggest probably McTominay, but the energy and everything that McTominay puts into the game, I don't think I'd fancy putting Pogba in McTominay's place. How does that sound to you? You know what I mean?
Ricky, they're saying McTominay's better than Pogba.
There's your clip.
Clip will say what?
Good luck. I've
never seen Pogba put that much energy into a game as McTominay did the other night. Anyway, not once. Maybe City away when we were 2-0 down.
That's a very valid point Ricky just made there, to be fair. Solskjaer himself said in interviews, and I'm quoting, Paul doesn't provide energy in midfield. Unquote.
Paul doesn't what?
Paul doesn't provide energy in midfield.
Right.
That's a direct quote from Solskjaer, right? So therefore, Pogba was shoehorned out on the left with McFred or McShite, as I call him, in the midfield. And we all know what happened there. So I know a lot of fan base now will lose their minds. Personally, gentlemen, I don't care if Pogba plays for us ever again. I really, really don't. Do you think Pogba is going to come back in late January, early February and be actually up for the fight? He hasn't done it for 5 years, gentlemen. So if he doesn't come back, he doesn't play again. Yeah. I'm not bothered. I'm not bothered, mate. Seriously.
Yeah. The only problem with Pogba coming back in, because if you look at it, if he still had time left on his contract, you look at it and you go, under Ole, we couldn't really fit him in. You think about it, the 4-3-2 probably suits him really well because he can play in that middle too, no problem, because he can drift in and out onto the wing like he was. I think more naturally in that position, and he'd have more cover to do what he wanted to do. The problem with Paul Pogba is exactly what Jay just said. Then he's got 5 months left on his contract. Does he give a toss? Is he going to just stroll around hoping that he doesn't get injured so he gets his big payoff at the end of the season? And you can't have players like that in your team. And you know what? I do think there's a place for him there if he's on fire, but he's never been on fire. That's the problem. That's always been the problem with Paul Pogba. We've never found a position for him from day one. His best position was in midfield next to Matic when we came back from lockdown the first time and we were flying. That was his best position and probably the best I've seen him play in a United shirt. But this is it, isn't it? It's what sort of Paul Pogba's coming back. Ricky said it. Jay said it. You're probably the same, Mark. Is he up for the fight? Is he going to give 100% knowing that he's gone in 5 months? Does he want to risk it? Because if Rangnick's got anything to do with it, he's going to expect certain miles put in. He's going to expect the physicality because we know that's his favourite thing. Is Pogba going to give you that in the middle? The answer is probably no from what I've seen so far of him. And therefore, does he get in the team? Or is he going to be right back to the start of the show, like you said, Mark, another player who is unhappy and is a problem behind the scenes?
Well,
just comes straight back into it.
It's funny. I gave you them 8 players at the start. Martial, Cavani, Lingard, Donny, Henderson, Mata, Matic, Bailly, Jones. 8 or 9 players there who want to go. I forgot about Pogba because I forgot he was here. So it is actually 10 players that want out, which is just bloody ridiculous. But what I would say about Pogba is probably different to all 3 of you. I would play Paul Pogba because I do rate Paul Pogba. But I agree with Adam, and we've discussed this in the past. Is he going to do a 50-50 against Spurs at Old Trafford or at Arsenal in the Emirates? No. And why would he? Because he's got 4 months left in his contract. And if he does his knee, he's absolutely screwed. And that's the danger. So I'd be interested to see what Rangnick does because I think Pogba is streets ahead of Fred and McTominay. But can you risk his commitment when he's only got 3 or 4 months left in his contract? But I think this is where we fail as a club anyway, because we're talking about McTominay or Pogba or Matic or Fred. Some people even talk about Donny. But none of them are the midfielder that we need. And this goes back to the previous regime. For 3 years, we've been told about a cultural reboot, a structure, even though that manager was sacked over a month ago, people are still talking about him like he deserves a bloody statue. If he deserves a statue and we've had a cultural reboot, why are half of the players he brought to the club desperate to get out of the club? Why do we not have a midfield that can get anywhere near the likes of a Chelsea or a Liverpool? I don't care whether Pogba or McTominay play. We haven't got the midfielder to play next to them. So it's irrelevant because for some reason over the last 3 years, we spent a lot of money, but we haven't bothered to build a midfield. And as Paul Ince said on the show many times, if you don't have a team to win the midfield battle, you will not compete for major trophies. And, that's why for me, if we don't buy somebody in January, and God, you've got to produce somebody bloody good, we ain't getting top 4. And then I might be the only one saying this, Ronaldo's gone. He ain't playing bloody Emmerdale Cup football on a Thursday. He will be gone.
Definitely agree on that. That's what you got to look at, isn't it? Because we're looking now and we're all skeptical if we're going to make top 4. You're going to lose Pogba, Lingard, Ronaldo and Cavani all in one summer. That's a lot of player right there. No matter how bad form they're in or what they're in, you could add Martial to that. Wow,
Maybe Donny.
Is this the actual overhaul?
And then we'll be in a right fucking mess next summer.
Oh my God, he's one hell of an overhaul if that is the case. Because I totally agree. Ronaldo is not here for Pontins League, whatever you want to call it, Europa League football. He's not here for Thursday nights. His name is Champions League. He's leading goal scorer this year. He's not going to just finish which could be his last year. I mean, he's not going to finish football in the Europa League. Not a chance.
Especially when he's not going to be in the bloody World
We
Cup.
might not be in the Europa League. Where have we got to finish to be in the Europa League?
Top 6.
Top 6. That's not guaranteed.
Ricky, don't make me feel worse, mate.
Well, he ain't going to play in the Conference League. I'll tell you that.
No, Conference League is
Spurs
7.
have got a great chance of being in the top 5. I know we have as well. But there's no guarantees we're going to finish above them. Are West Ham going to slide? Maybe West Ham will slide. I don't know.
I'll tell you, it's
not guaranteed top 6. It really isn't.
It's a sobering thought, actually, to think that we're always talking about how do we get back? How do we get back? And if things go wrong over the next 4 months, we might well be in a worse situation than we've been ever since Sir Alex Ferguson retired. And not a lot of it will be actually on Rangnick's toes. I think a lot of the problems, as Jay said at the start of the show, a lot of these problems are inherited, and they're massive problems. When you take over a team that's, you know, when Ollie took over from Mourinho, it was a good team that had enough of Mourinho, and Ollie came in, they were like, oh, thanks, Ollie, let's have a good time. You know, Rangnick's inherited a team where Martial probably never even bloody trained with him and gone, I'm off. I don't give a shit what you're offering. I don't care whether you're washing my car. I'm off. And that's a very hard job to inherit, because there's so many players. Yeah, so many players are like, I don't really care what you're offering. You're only here for 4 months. I want to go. So and I'll go back to what you said, Ricky. Tomorrow night, you win that. You've improved from Burnley. You beat a good side. We're in a good position, confidence. You lose that, and you're starting to worry. It's a massive game tomorrow night, isn't it?
It is.
Massive game. If we win it, we're absolutely cock a hoop. You know, it's 3 points out. We're in a position. What did you just work out? 3 points behind Chelsea. If we can win all 3, you know, to be 3.
Yeah.
We've only got 2 games to win to be. You know what I mean? It makes such a difference. That first one. Not that I'm suggesting we'll catch Chelsea, but it certainly looks a lot better, the league table, if we win this game tomorrow night. It would actually look feasible that we might catch the likes of. Before anybody puts it in the comments, I'm not suggesting we're going to catch Liverpool or Chelsea, but mathematically, it looks feasible if we win tomorrow night. It looks feasible.
Yeah, it does. Look, we'll leave it there. I thoroughly enjoyed the show. Just everybody remember, if you don't live in the UK, we're having a bank holiday tomorrow. I thought we were playing 8 o'clock tomorrow night. We're actually playing at 5:30. So if you're not in the UK, you might be thinking, oh, it's an evening match. It's not. It's 5:30 kickoff tomorrow. So we'll have the usual pre-match stuff, after match and everything like that. But, you know, it's not just a run-of-the-mill after Christmas game. It's actually massive. And it will be a proper test. And I don't think we'll be able to say if we win tomorrow night, lads, well, it's only Burnley. You know, I think beating Wolves in more ways than one, as Adam was saying, it's probably going to be an horrible game, as you and Jay said.
No, mate, honestly, it is. It's like how we've notoriously done against them in the past, how the big teams in this season have all struggled against them. It tells you everything you need to know about the outfit that Wolves are and how organised they are. They are one-oiled machine. They just, like I said,
I think they've had a week off as well. I think they haven't played in a week.
They have, yeah. They just the only thing that lets them down is, like I said, they just can't finish the dinner. They're poor up top, and considering the players they've got as well, it's so surprising, because I rate Jimenez as one of the best centre forwards, old school centre forwards in the league. I think he's quality, but he's come back from injury, and they've just not got that cutting edge. But if they did have that player, they'd be fighting top 6, no problem. Well, we'll see what happens. Thanks for coming on, Jay. You're welcome, guys. I tell you right now, I would take a 1-0 off Fred's ass right now. 3 points. Done and dusted. Seriously.
Same here. Agreed.
Thanks for coming on, Ricky.
Cheers, Mark. Enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.
And thanks, Adam.
Yeah, give me a VAR, anything. Controversial 1-0 win. Get out of there. Cheers. No problem, mate. Yeah, and people are getting very excited. The return of the king, I'm seeing, because Phil Jones might be playing. But Harry Maguire, I'm sure Harry Maguire will be there tomorrow. I wouldn't get excited or worried, whichever way you are.
Suddenly you're desperate for him to be there.
I'd take Harry Maguire. I'd take bloody Harry Potter at centre-back over him, over Phil Jones. Phil Jones gives me nightmares. I don't, you know, he'll probably put in a worldie, but we'll see. We'll wait. We'll see.
Phil Jones masterclass incoming. Just wait for it. It's on the cards.
I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We will see you for all of this tomorrow. Have a good evening and take care.